So thank you very much for joining the webinar this morning. I'll pass first to Shalini, the co-founder and CEO of Tasman Iron. Shalini, all yours.
Thanks, Caitlin, and thanks for having me here. It's always a pleasure to talk about the commercialization journey because the word itself, it's a big deal for a researcher. I want to talk about how this journey started. I have got some slides, but being a founder, there's always a little bit of pitch that comes out automatically. So today I'm going to refrain from that. I came to New Zealand in 2017. Tasman Iron, the company, is based here. I came here for a PhD, and my PhD was actually based on making aluminium batteries, something that does not explode. I was a really happy PhD student, having fun with my work. And suddenly, in my second year, we find this particular battery material that was really good. The performance was great. But as a PhD student, my focus was on my thesis to make sure that the rest of the materials that I was working with, the science story was complete. Lo and behold, it turns out that because that particular magic material that we had was good enough to be patented. And that's how, the commercialization journey started. It's not just patenting your material. Universities have a tech transfer office. And these offices are responsible for, figuring out if that particular patent is good enough to become a product in the market or not. So in my case, the battery tech that I was working on, does it have a market? Would a good business plan lead that research of mine out into the world and make it a better place, and so on and so forth? So that is what my initial definition of commercialization was. But oh, I was so wrong. So I'm going to share a slide with you, giving you introductions on what I have learned and some snippets from my journey. And I really hope it helps you all and does not scare you. Cool. Is the screen all big and good?
Yep, we can see that. Great.
Yep. Okay, great. So this is Tasman Iron. I'm the CEO and the co-founder, and we are trying to make the world a better place by making rechargeable aluminium iron batteries. I think it all started with the reason why I was doing this project. Everyone was working on lithium-ion batteries, which is great. But my Professor Thomas Mann, my PhD supervisor, and we decided to venture into something that was much more sustainable, that was much more safer. And, aluminium, really common material, the battery cost would be much less, the chemistry was much more safer. So this slide is basically me understanding what the problem of the world was when it comes to the existing battery tech. And this was our value proposition. This looks really neat and tidy, but this was like 4 years of work during my PhD and trying to understand how this product is going to become something that is affordable for all, something that can be accessed not just by the richer countries, but also for people who need to get out of energy poverty. As I said, aluminium, most abundant metal in the Earth's crust, that's all good. Our patented cathode material, basically another part of the battery, is also a commodity. It has an industry of its own, which made us realize that this battery is going to be much more cheaper than what it is, than what our competitors have in the market right now. So what I did was I was making these cells in the lab here in the university, Victoria University. But it was also important for me to transfer that recipe into an existing battery lab. So I went to Fraunhofer. And again, this was my second year. So I was just trying to figure out if I put my recipe in a more advanced battery design, do the batteries still work? It did. So that also made us realize that there is that ease of production. If I mature this technology enough, in the future, we will be able to use the existing lithium battery factories to make aluminium ion cells. So that was a big win for us. And then obviously I tried to punch these batteries and, cut them off. And there was no flammability issue. There was no toxic gas release issue. So that was also good. So all of these advantages of your technology over the other competitors or the competitions existing becomes your value proposition. And then it was all about the vision that I had for this product. During my PhD, this is not what I was thinking about because I was only focused on the science of it all. But as I realized, I was drafting the patent, I was working with the tech transfer office and going through the business plans. I realized I need to visualize the product. What is that core market that I'm actually going to get into? What is it that I'm trying to prove to the world with my science or with the battery tech that we have invented? And this is the sentence, this is the vision that we came up with, creating the world's safest and greenest battery tech. And that's when I realized that I need to understand who's going to buy this product and what is the size of that market. Best case scenario, if Tasman Iron becomes as big as Tesla, how much money are we going to make? How much, the investors should feel comfortable enough with the product that you are trying to make, with the invention that you're trying to sell. So understanding the market size was also important. Yes, the numbers speak for themselves, billions and billions of dollars in the battery industry. It all sounds good. But now it was time to get all practical. This picture was in, I think, right after submitting my PhD thesis. We had come up with this logo and the name of the company. My life was changing because I had decided to not carry out with a postdoc, but enter the entrepreneurial world. And then came the troubling, definitions or the words. What is traction? What is pre-market validation? And how do you get along? Like, how do you start capital raise? All of these words, when you think of converting your science into a product, into a company, you need investors. You need people who like your science, who trust in your vision to take your company forward. And you need to make sure that your vision is supported not only by investors, but the people from your industry. In my case, the battery industry. I had a positive response from a big German institute called Fraunhofer. They trusted in our technology. They actually validated our technical plan, our advancements. So that is the traction that you're looking for. The traction is actually in two parts. One is the technical traction, where you talk about how your technology is good enough and there are timelines set. So for example, it might take you 4 years to create the product or 5 years to create the product. And then comes the commercial traction. Who is going to be that investor who aligns well with your vision? You need consultants. You need people who understand the battery industry really well so that in future, Tasman Iron can partner with big battery companies and carry out the technical progress. So our business model is currently based on selling our cathode recipes to the existing battery manufacturers. We do not want to become manufacturers. New Zealand is a small country to do that. And therefore, Tasman Iron is currently working on the research and development aspect of the battery cathode chemistry. So our pre-market validation was based on, where is that first market that we want to take our product into? Australia, that's what we figured out. That's what the data tells you. That's what my many conversations with investors or consultants, analysts tells us to do. India is going to be the second market that we enter. And then to make this vision into reality, you need money. So I was in that capital raising mode where you create a lot of pitch decks. You have these presentations where you are trying to sell your product. You are trying to tell the world that you give me money, you give me your trust, and I'm going to make the best battery technology there is. However, it's you who trusts your vision. But with data, with your market validation work, with the traction that you have received, you have to convince the others around you to take your company forward. So capital raising is, I think it was a very, very good experience for me because we've only done one capital raise till date. We did our pre-seed round back in December 2021. We raised around $750,000 New Zealand. It's not much, but at least it kept me going. I think it was important for me to create the team that I wanted. So I'm the inventor of the Tasman Iron technology, right? But I could not take the technology forward alone. I needed people around me. I needed scientists, researchers who had worked on batteries before, who understood the pitfalls of, the scientific challenges. So creating a team around you, it takes time, but it also makes you much more confident about, taking your or making your technology mature and robust. So after I think 6 or 7 months of looking into a lot of CVs and the resumes, this is my current team. We have researchers, a scientist, and a technician. And that's my Professor Thomas Mann, my PhD supervisor, is our chief science advisor. We always get to pick his brains if we get stuck in any scientific challenge whatsoever. As I said, I have not done this alone. So New Zealand has been extremely supportive because as a PhD student, you only care about the data. You only care about, oh, my battery is good because the numbers say so. That's not enough. You need, as I said, validators around you. You need cheerleaders around you who help you realize that vision. So I took up any opportunity that came my way to make that into reality, be it applying for as many government grants as possible. I literally raised around $500,000 through grant fundings in New Zealand. I was going into these panel discussions, trying to understand what a founder's journey is supposed to be. What are the mistakes that I should not be doing? Learning from other people's experiences. And also, the article that you see here, How to Build an EV, this was back in 2021. One of my current investors actually read this article and approached me. So media, like, yes, it is all fancy and stuff, but it also makes you visible to a lot of important people. So if you think you've got a technology that is going to change the world or that is capable of changing the world, spread out the word. As a scientist, we are not really keen on doing that. But if you think it's got a commercialization potential, just be as loud as possible. I've got this big poster of the Climate Response Accelerator because I wanted to talk maybe a minute on, the importance of accelerators. And I think Caitlin is going to, cover that as well in the next few minutes. This accelerator was teaching me the ABC of commercialization. It was teaching me that I am capable of becoming a CEO of my own company. Just because I'm a scientist does not mean that I do not have the skill set to become a founding CEO. I was able to prepare business plans myself. I was able to understand the finances. I was able to have conversations with investors, which are really different from what you do amongst technical people, because it's not all data driven. So I think accelerators like these were the biggest turning point in my life because it brought me out of that scientific thought process and understanding what it takes to make sure that you are creating a company and not just working on that science project. And then I think, oh, I also won an award, by the way. And this is not me advertising myself, but I put this image to keep motivating myself, whenever I'm speaking to people, that have as many cheerleaders around you who realize what you're capable of and make sure that you ask as many questions, even if they're stupid, it doesn't matter. Because when you have a supporter around you or a good investor or someone who understands what you're capable of, they will be adhering to all of those stupid questions. Science is crazy. Not everything is going to be under your control, but it is possible. You can do this. I'm always here to, if you have any questions around the other journeys that I've had, around IP or the patenting process, I'm here for you. But it's really important that you need to be ready for it if you think your product or your science is capable of commercialization. This slide, I think, is really important. This is the commercialization slide. Sorry, the acknowledgement slide, because this is packaging up all the commercialization stuff that has happened in the past. Pact Channel is our lead investor from New Zealand. Angel HQ is a club of angel investors, again from New Zealand. And these were the biggest investors in the first round. Victoria University, my stipend came from this university, my PhD came from this university, so always going to be thankful. Uni Ventures is the TTO that I was talking about. Reach out to your TTO if you think your science is capable of something great, because they will help you understand how to convert that into a product. There were times when I've been without a job. Especially after my PhD. I ran out of my stipends and I was looking for a job. McDermott Institute gave me those 3 to 6 months internships where I was still working on my batteries, but also being able to pay my bills. So that is also important for a scientist. KiwiNet is a government-funded institute here, a company in New Zealand. And they have been my biggest cheerleaders when I was going through that transition from the researcher into that commercialization journey. And I think EnergyLab does the same, even in a more fantastic way, if I could say that. Fraunhofer is the biggest technical supporter that we have had so far. We are still in touch with them to make sure that any data validation that is required, any technical improvement that is required, we can rely on them. Yes, the process gets much more, there's a lot of transaction involved because now you're a company, but you do need people who understand and support your vision around you to make your dreams become reality. So I'm going to stop here. And if anyone has any questions for me, I'm all here. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks so much, Shalini. I am going to hold some questions until the end when Eric can answer them too, but perhaps this one is quite specific for you that we have in the chat. There's a question about how much of the tech that you have did you have to reveal to the German university when you're going through validation?
So they were very clear about the IP. So the IP belongs to us. So the chemistry of the battery tech, the recipe that I'm making, it belongs to us. The German Institute, they took some money and they did not touch the IP at all. They just used their expertise, their knowledge to transfer that recipe into, their advanced processes. That was it. So the IP conversation, whenever you're dealing with a commercial entity or a technical company, that's the first question we have. Have an NDA sorted and then make sure that the IPs are properly divided and there is no confusion or layover. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Prashant, who put that into the chat, I can see you've put your camera on. Do you have any follow-up questions at all for Shalini?
No, yeah, so the only thing, I think she answered it well, I suppose, in terms of, because there's degrees of, there's the IP and then the trade secrets, because in our case, we've got the IP, but then there are certain very significant enabling factors which we are maintaining as trade secrets. And so therefore it becomes difficult in terms of how does that get done. So perhaps every problem is different, I suppose, in some ways, and we'll have to figure out the best way to sort of navigate that without compromising the key areas, I suppose.
Yeah, and we have some similar situations, Prashant. So more than happy to take this offline if you have more questions, because IP always goes along with some trade secrets. And when you are associating yourself with a bigger company or a bigger lab, for example, we have to make sure that those are, properly differentiated. So yeah, if you want, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
and we can
certainly.
take this chat
It'll be a big help because we are at a point where so some of those discussions have initiated, and in few weeks we have to make some significant decisions. So that'll be tremendous help. Thanks, Shalini.
Sure.
Fantastic. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Shalini. I will grab you again after Eric speaks, because I'd love to ask some questions of my own as well as throw it to the audience. But I'll let you off the hook for now, and I'll introduce Eric. So Eric is also co-founder and CEO, this time for MGA Thermal. And Eric, can you hear us? Are you good? You're up on the screen now for us. You're just on mute, sorry.
Except for the old 2022 most popular word of the year. You're on mute. All right, thanks for the intro, Caitlin. I should point out I'm a former university professor at the University of Newcastle, and I have recently appointed a CEO to take my role there. So I'm now the executive chair of MGA and chief scientist. MGA, well, I'm not going to use any slides. MGA Thermal, I suppose I should set the scene. And thanks, Shalini, that was a great presentation. I'm not as animated or engaging as that. I'm an old professor, I'll just drone on. MGA Thermal is commercialising a thermal energy storage technology that will help decarbonise industrial heat as our first market. There are plenty of other markets, but you have to focus, and that's an early lesson. Industrial heat accounts for about 24% of global emissions, and it comes from things like the sort of hidden things you never see in daily life, but mineral processing. There are mineral refineries in Australia that use 10 gigawatt hours of energy a day for industrial steam. Oil and gas refineries, food, agribusiness, textiles, etc. And a lot of that heat is in the form of industrial steam. Globally, this is a multi-tens of trillions market. There's some good work on trying to put a number on that, but it's really that once the numbers get into the trillions, it's not worth thinking about. Investors don't care. You show them that number, they go, oh, okay. Mostly because if you capture a minute proportion of that, then it's still a significant company. But the point is that the size of that market means that the world's largest corporations, so we're not talking companies, we're talking corporations, are desperate for a solution because they're under combined pressure from their from emissions laws and from their shareholders. So we're currently in the right place at the right time, but that hasn't always been the case, and that's important to feed into the discussion. So currently we've raised $22 million from investors and about $6 million in government grants in the last 5 years. And that sounds really cool. That sounds very impressive. That is a tiny, tiny fraction of what we need to raise to go where we need to go to make a significant, to have a significant impact on this problem. So there's still hurdles to overcome, and none of this has happened overnight. So I'll just take you back a little way. So how did we get here? Like most academics, I and a senior fellow and a group of PhD students were sort of struggling along at the University of Newcastle, subsisting on government grants and repurposed equipment and consumables from earlier grants. And the research we were doing, we had a grant to produce a concentrated solar-powered thermionic converter, which basically takes heat from concentrated sunlight, turns it straight into electricity. So trying to find a more efficient way to turn sunlight into electricity. And then over coffee one day, we thought, oh, crap, it doesn't work at night. And although we did get some devices working in the lab, we started our pivot into thermal storage at that point. So that's way back in 2010. In 2011 and 12, we made that pivot. Existing technology had a number of problems. So we developed the idea of a latent heat enhanced solid storage material that could be heated from renewable electricity and then able to be expanded and stored in vast quantities to meet this significant global need. And the idea was patented by the university. We persevered with the university's tech transfer office for about 6 years, looking for external commercial partners. That was the model in place at Newcastle at the time, and indeed until quite recently. But we didn't have any success there. So we should probably pause and think about why. So despite decades and decades of evidence, globally, there was still debate about climate change in 2010. The new government in Australia took us 10 years backwards. So it was not understood. It was not either not understood or not accepted that it was each person and each company and each government's responsibility to do something about it. Some governments had taken action, but major and minor corporations, they hadn't really faced up to the fact that the entire energy landscape was going to have to change, and very quickly, firstly. And secondly, there's no silver bullet. There's no one technology that already exists that's sort of hiding in a corner somewhere that we can immediately expand and solve the problem. We're going to need every single technology that we can access, and more. So we were faced with a situation where there was virtually no market for large-scale renewable energy storage at all. The Hornsdale battery was only commissioned in 2017. And certainly thermal energy storage, there was no market for that. So the challenge, for electrifying industrial heat wasn't even recognised or understood by the people who use industrial heat, let alone governments and funding bodies and investors. And that was true as late as 2019 or 2020. So we were too early. We were way too early for governments or large companies to take the lead. And so we thought, oh, crikey, we better do it ourselves. So I had that choice of whether to take my superannuation and go live a cool and satisfying life on the beach, or start a company. And guess what I chose? So what we didn't realise at the time, but thinking back, we would have to build a product, a scalable manufacturing technology or process, a thermal energy storage market globally, and a company, all at the same time. And that's what we've been trying to do. And that has been it's both our strength and our penance, is that we've had to do a whole heap of things in parallel. And it's quite challenging, but we're getting there. In 2017, my co-founder Alex Post was a graduated PhD student, not in this area, in fact, and he suggested we do some commercialisation training. So we took the CSIRO on programs, and we also later on did an EnergyLab accelerator program, targeting more at companies that are at that beginning of their scale-up journey rather than just spinning out. And that was very, very useful. So what did we learn, and what are we still learning? To listen. When you go into a meeting with a potential customer, you should spend at least 50% of the time listening to what is their problem, what are they looking for in an answer, what are the drivers for their interest in your product or your research. It's really important. I can't stress it enough. You know everything there is to know about the research that you've been doing, but you know nothing about what's going on in that person across the table's head. So there's a tendency to go in hard and sell. You know, I must convince this person this is the best technology. It's highly likely you're driving the conversation in a direction that is totally of no interest to them. Second thing to know is that research results are not a saleable commodity. And Shalini dwelt on this a bit, but your customer wants to buy a product. You don't go to the supermarket and pick up a box of Weet-Bix and go, oh, crikey, how does this work? I'd really like to buy the mechanism by which these things hold together. No, you want to buy the product. So we have a physical product, MGA blocks. They need to be manufactured, they need to be formulated, manufactured, raw materials, etc. And we're actually doing the manufacturing. Although they're often fascinated and a bit mesmerized by the underlying science and technical details, your customers and investors, they're not really that interested in how it works. Not really. What they're interested in is how well it works. And it sounds like it's virtually the same thing, but it's nothing like it. How well does it work? How does it compare? So you got to learn how all the other competitors work. You have to understand how your product's properties might extrapolate when it's bigger and when you've had time to improve it more, etc. So it takes you into an uncomfortable space as a scientist where you are extrapolating. The first thing you're taught in first year. Interpolation's fine, extrapolation, very dangerous. Don't do it. Well, I'm afraid in business, extrapolation is the key. In most cases, a new material or gadget or process, if it's significantly groundbreaking, it's also not a saleable commodity. You need a whole system within which that can function. And that's where Shalini's contacts with the Fraunhofer was so important, I guess, because they have a system and you can come along and plug into it. We didn't have that. We didn't have a system either, so we have to design the whole thermal energy storage system. So now we have patented thermal energy storage systems that use our blocks to store energy and dispatch heat. And that's been great because it's a great sales tool, right? People can come in and say, oh, if you're trying to sell them an MGA block, they go, well, it's like selling someone a carburetor for a car or a fuel injector. What do I do with this? I have no car to put it in. Understanding what your customer values, that's really important, as I mentioned earlier. So for us, the example I use is that we were thinking, oh, you put energy into this stuff, you store it, and then you dispatch it when there's no energy available on the grid. Yeah, okay, it can do that. But what it can also do is it can discharge heat at the same time as it's receiving energy. And that gives you 24/7 dispatch capability and accept power whenever it's available under whatever conditions you want to buy it. And that's actually the key thing for all of these very large customers. They want a smooth transition using their existing equipment from using fossil fuels to using renewable power. They don't want to change a thing. They want something that plugs in and can provide them steam 24 hours. And if you can do that without having a separate system that works during the day directly off power and then works at night on storage, happy days. Business model, I think Shalini touched a bit on that. I probably won't go too far into that, but I mean, who are you selling to? That's a key question. So are you selling to the end user of the energy? Are you selling to an energy supply company who will then on-sell the product? Are you selling to the grid operator who might want to use your product to help stabilise the system? Are you selling to an energy transmission company that might want a local ability to absorb oversupply and level out? So it's really important. Something you don't even think about when you're starting out. It's like, I've got a product, I'm going to sell it. Right? Well, who's buying it? And you've got to do all those things in parallel in a growing company. You don't get to work through them systematically like you do in the lab. Whoops, just messed up my notes. So what have we done that's different from a traditional startup? Well, traditional startup is typically you make a gadget, you sell it to Joe Blow down the road, they tell all their mates, you sell one to the neighbour, she tells her friends and puts it on Facebook, and then you grow your business that way, you bootstrap, you start making sales, and so on. So technology businesses don't work that way. Shalini's hasn't worked that way. Ours hasn't certainly not worked that way because we've completely flipped that model. So we're dealing directly with the largest energy consumers in the world. And that's not an exaggeration, that's a fact. So these are gigantic companies. they're under extreme pressure to decarbonise, as I mentioned, from the shareholders on one side and climate legislation on the other. So the world's largest mining companies, the world's largest energy companies, you might think, oh, well, they're the biggest polluters, aren't they? The oil and gas refineries, yes, but we are going to need petrochemical products for other purposes. And also that they are trying to transition into being able to sell clean energy products to their customers rather than carbon-based energy products. They've got the ability to fund things off their balance sheet. The downside is they have very slow and complex internal processes to get anything across the line. So it's a very long sales cycle. You're going to need funding. If you're dealing with them, you're going to need funding to sustain yourself for a significant period before they'll sign up. All right, so what does our approach take? Well, some people would say gumption or confidence or whatever, but I think in our case it was just a naive simple-mindedness to treat everyone as equal and talk to everyone the same, no matter how big or cashed up they are. You need capital investment. In our case, we've had to build a whole manufacturing plant and a 5 megawatt hour demonstration plant to demonstrate the thermal energy storage technology. It doesn't take long before you need experienced business and finance staff on your team, in your team. You can't, for very long, get away with accessing that by consulting or advisors and so on. And you need a rapidly scalable product. These large companies don't want to wait around for 5 years or 10 years while you get your act together on that. So what's next for MGA? Well, we've got our first commercial demonstrations in contract negotiation stage. Our own 5 megawatt hour demonstrator will be online in Q3 calendar year, that is, this year. And it's onward and upward. That's it from me.
Great. Thanks so much, Eric. Really appreciate you going through that. Really interesting to hear about from a personal experience. Always more interesting than reading a website or reading a LinkedIn bio. So really good to hear from you. Thank you. I'd love to invite anyone to put their hand up or just come on mute and ask some questions or put them in the chat if you're feeling a bit shy and don't want to speak directly. We'll bring Shalini back up here for a spotlight as well. While people are thinking of some questions, I have one for you, the very generic question that I feel like I need to ask. You've both given some really great advice about some of the things that you would consider and if you for other people, if they were going to go down this journey, and those are some of the things that we definitely will cover through Climate Tech Ignite for Researchers. A small plug from me, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I guess from your transition across from researcher to entrepreneur researcher, are there any skills you've picked up along the way in that commercialization phase or in that, that startup world that have, enhanced your research capabilities or your research experience too?
Yep. Go on, Shalini.
The one change that I've seen in myself is early on when we had our board meetings or when I was, pitching in front of people, I was a lot more technical. Or if there were questions around the technology, I would get defensive and try to defend the technology as if it's my baby. The biggest lesson is to, so English is not my first language. Excuse me if the usage is wrong, but get rid of all of those emotions. You have given 4 years, 10 years, 7 years to that technology. It's fine. But now when you're working in a company, we will be managing a lot of expectations, and it's not just about the science, as Eric said. I, for example, was speaking to some consultants, like big battery experts in the US. Their tone, their expectations, their vision from Tasmania was way different than what I was thinking. So instead of finding myself being assertive about, nope, this is the vision that I have, you should agree with this, I realized that I was more open to, allowing other people's experiences tune my vision in a better way, and not, like walk all over me. But yeah, I think you should be open to criticism, for sure. And like try to alienate yourself from a lot of emotions when it comes to your science or your product or your tech. That's me.
Yes, I can I can reinforce that. It comes back to that listening to their point of view, thinking about it. I guess in general, my people skills are much better than they were when I was a university professor. um, yes, at all levels. You learn the general, I guess you learn how business people think. It's almost like a different species. Shalini probably agrees. People who have only ever worked in business or finance or investment, it's quite a different world. You need to try to be empathic and understand where they're coming from, what's motivating them.
Yeah, the language changes.
It's almost certainly not make it invalid. It's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shalini.
Sorry, Shalini, were you going to say something there?
Oh, no. I was just going to say, and it kind of resonates with one of the questions I think Sam has put up. So yeah, the language that me as a technical founder used to speak, and that changes with the entire journey of commercialization. It's not just about your technology and what its advantage is anymore. It's about what your consumer needs. What is that timeline? What is that capital that might be needed to make their expectations? Like, it's a mutual benefit thing. You cannot just keep thinking about your tech, your science, and everything. It's about keeping both the parties happy. And one of the skill sets, I think it's about you wanting to take on the commercialization role. If you think you want to be the chief scientific officer, great. If you think you want to be the chief technical officer, great. CEO, that is also fine. But be prepared of what you're signing up for. And therefore, surrounding yourself with advisors or accelerators was very, very helpful to me, because they kind of put in my head, as a CEO, what was expected of me. It's not just science, it's about accountings, it's about a lot of admin work. And if you are okay to do that, great. But do speak to people around you who've done this before you sign up any contract, any term sheet whatsoever.
Great. Anything to add there, Eric?
No, that sort of sums it up.
Perfect. I promise we didn't pay Shalini to say accelerators are really great and worthwhile to engage with. Totally unprompted. Yeah.
I actually just thought of one thing about in the early days, in not in your program, but in the On Prime program, there's a big, and on Accelerate, there's a big emphasis on this, the short pitch. Get up, smash out a few minutes of this, that, or the other, and the elevator pitch and all of those things. I have never used those outside of On Prime and On Accelerate. A pitch to an investor or a client, I find, is best handled as a conversation. And yes, you'll have a slide deck, no problem. But it's not a lecture. It's not I'm going to smash through these slides and give my message, because that's the only thing that's important. It sort of feeds into this point we're discussing. You run it as a conversation. You put up a slide. You say what you're going to say about that slide. You invite feedback, questions, whatever, or you just have a conversation and you pull up the appropriate slide when when it's needed. Yeah, I highly recommend that that people consider that mode.
Yeah, great. That's really interesting insight into your experience, and yeah, those learnings that are very relevant at the time and then don't necessarily seem as important later on. I might move this because I have all of us slided, but let's see if I can see everyone at once. I think that's nicer so that people can see each other. And if anyone would like to come off mute, please do. We'd love to hear questions from the audience or experiences. Is anyone, even a show of hands, is anyone going down this journey or interested in this journey of going from researcher to entrepreneur?
I have a different experience because I'm not technically a researcher. I've done my research degree many years ago, and although I'm still an adjunct faculty, my innovation is part of my own company. A question for Eric really is being deep tech and very similar. So, have you sort of had experience with strategic investors versus general investors? Like, was there any of that decision making to be done, and what was your experience?
So we do have one strategic investor, a sort of a mid-scale engineering manufacturing sort of company that's quite local. We do have some backing from Shell for our demonstrator. So strategic investment will probably be part of our next raise, serious strategic investment. We're probably looking at about a 50-50 or 60-40 ratio of strategics. I'm advised that strategic investors, you should always have at least two so that you don't get completely dominated by one and in their pocket, because you end up having conversations about exclusivity and other things that you can't possibly map out when you're at an early stage. Anything you sign over as exclusive now will come back to bite you later. So that's about it from me. Like, we're engaged in all the companies we're talking to also have an investment arm. Let's put it that way. So all of our customers also have a large, I don't know, $200 million a year, $500 million a year kind of strategic investment funds. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Eric. We've got a question from the chat as well. They're curious about the valuations of the startups that were done throughout the journey and what method you used, and if you have any insights to share.
That's the method I use.
We struggled quite a bit, to be honest, because university spin-outs have their challenges. Yeah, like, I obviously did not have a lot of experience on evaluating any company whatsoever. So I was given a lot of advice from all ends. But yeah, eventually it turned out that, the amount of money that had been put into when this was a science project and all of that, that's how it was evaluated. But if you ask me today, I could have used someone much more experienced in the battery industry to help us with that, rather than just some professionals deciding on the valuation.
Something's only valued really at whatever someone will pay you for it. In the very early stages, it is significantly difficult. One way of doing it, what we basically did was look at the amount of money we were trying to raise and the amount of equity we were willing to give up. Divide that one by that one. And that gives you a target number. And then you stretch that a little bit because the other party will always try to argue you down. So as it happens, in our first one, we landed on the stretch target, not the lower one. But there are pitfalls in overvaluing your company too early. You don't want to be in the situation where you have to do a down round at a lower valuation than your previous one. everybody, all your investors hate you after that. I haven't experienced that, but I've heard some terrible stories. So it's a balance and a negotiation with the investor, really.
Great. Thank you very much, Eric and Shalini. I think if we don't have any other questions, we might wrap up this component of the call. Did you either of you have any closing remarks, any last little bits you wanted to say before I go into our new program?
Sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to be flippant and say that I would quote the famous Marrickville boxer Jeff Fennick and say, "Love yous all." Thanks for listening.
I think my closing remark would be this, like the entrepreneurial journey, it is risky. So try to understand what you are getting into. And it's not just emotional. It's not just, oh, I'm going to do this. Passion is great, but you have to be practical as well. So I was out of jobs for like 4 to 6 months. If you're ready for such challenges, great. Like just make sure you make an informed decision. Yeah.
Great. Thank you both. Really appreciate everything you've shared today, and thanks everyone for joining. The team will still be online for the next 10 minutes or so to chat through our Climate Tech Ignite for Researchers program, so please feel free to stick around for that. Eric and Shalini have brought up quite a few nuggets of advice and things to consider in going in this journey, and they definitely align with what we're trying to achieve through Climate Tech Ignite for Researchers. So with that, I'll also introduce Tom, who's joined the call now. Tom's one of our program leads at EnergyLab and will be leading the Climate Tech Ignite for Researchers. It's a mouthful of a name, but it's a fantastic program that we're very excited about. Tom, did you want to say anything? I'll bring up some slides and we can talk through that too.
Yeah, hi everyone. Great to see you all. Thank you, Eric and Shalini, for sharing your insights into your commercialization journey. We're really excited to get started on the Ignite for Researchers program. We're currently still running applications. The deadline is the 21st of April. And the program is going to be 8 weeks with different modules in which you go all the way from ideation based on the research that you're currently doing, coming up with a problem that you want to solve, and doing customer discovery, talking with people and really figuring out a business idea that you can build around your research. We're running 8 weeks of modules starting the 7th of May. And we're going to invite a lot of speakers into the program as well that have hands-on experience, just like Eric and Shalini have, and they can share about pitfalls and about lessons learned and about how to actually practically spin out your IP from your research. So those are going to be very valuable insights to anybody that's looking to go on this journey themselves as well. Besides just getting insights into how to do this and how to go about it. And that's primarily the goal of the program, is to show you entrepreneurship as a commercialization pathway.
Great, thanks, Tom. I'll share up the screen, the slides, so I should have had those as you were chatting. The first thing that we do also really emphasize with this program is the fact that, building on what Shalini said, is that, you need your cheerleaders and you need those people that are supporting you. And we're really excited to be able to be that for this new cohort of people. EnergyLab's Australia's and New Zealand's largest clean energy and climate tech startup accelerator and innovation network. So when we say we're backing you, it's not just our team, which in itself holds a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of expertise, but you're also tapping into a network of over 300 mentors, over 180 alumni, and a number that I don't know of investors who are really important for the conversations at the start of your commercialization process, but also as you continue to grow, being able to engage with them on a regular basis through our work. We're at the the start end, this program, it's that ideas phase. So please, this program is for you, whether you have necessarily started your research at all, if you just have an idea and you're looking at building that commercial mindset before you get into the crux of it, or perhaps you're already deep into your PhD or your master's and keen to see this as another way to create some impact through your work. This is sort of something that Tom's already spoken to, and that is it is an 8-week program, and there's a lot of content that you'll receive through the modules, but also it's the connections and the tools and the commercial mindset that we're really keen to be able to drill into you over the 8 weeks to really get you going on that journey. Tom, so I don't hog this the mic. Did you want to speak to anything here?
No, go ahead. You're going strong.
Okay, no worries. So the program is a paid program. It's $990. We do have payment plans available. However, we're really keen to have conversations if you're interested in being involved. But this is a pathway that you would need to take. More than happy to set those up. It is cohort based, so there will be a selection process, but we're hoping to. We have plenty of space in it between 10 to 20 participants anyway. So please, if you're a bit unsure, don't take that as something to hesitate on. We'd really love to hear from you and to hear about how you may fit into the program and what you could get out of it. So it's an 8-week program, but we do have a break in the middle. So it's actually 7 weeks of sessions online. There's 2 90-minute sessions a week, as well as pre-reading, as well as, for want of a better word, homework, outside learning exercises that we can take you through, as well as some mentoring sessions, like I said, with that mentors network that we've got at EnergyLab. So these are just some of the things that we cover in the program. And a very high level overview here shows you some of the topics that we will cover that definitely align with some of the barriers and some of the, I guess, the learnings that Shalini and Erich spoke to in their own experiences through research to entrepreneurship. So yeah, to finish up, here's our key dates. We are wrapping up applications in the next couple of weeks, so please put in your applications through the website. We can put the link into the chat, but also reach out to Tom or I via email. If you have any questions at all, we'd love to chat via email or via setting up an online chat. We're also talking to many of the universities to reach out to more researchers, particularly in New South Wales, but also around Australia as well. So that's the end of those slides. Thank you for those that were able to stay on right to the end. Thanks, Tom, for adding that link in there. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to stay on the line. But otherwise, enjoy your Friday, and we'll talk to you next time.